Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show in which I go to school to learn my learnings because I'm dumb. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Thursday. Terrific Thursday. Why is it terrific? Well, we are in the aftermath of the greatest storm to ever hit the TED Excellence universe, and that was last week's episode. If you missed it, I do apologize. It was something to behold. It was our very first total and absolute bingo blackout, an epic moment that I don't know if will ever be repeated. After a fashion, I hope it never does, because man, that was a slog, mentally and otherwise. But what do we have on deck today? Well, I thought I'd go back to school, because I haven't done that recently, have I? Affirming diversity in the classroom, why it matters to your students. Affirming diversity. Okay, so in my hope of hopes kind of thing, you just let all the kids know that they're all unique in their own way, right? I mean, Bobby's not the same person as Susie and so on and so forth. But at the core, we're all people. Regardless of our differences, we are all humans and can commiserate together as neighbors, brothers and sisters, and so on, and treat each other with respect. More or less. Golden rule. That's what I would hope. Is that what I'm going to get? I don't know. Haven't watched it yet. Guess we'll find out. But before we get there, let's say hello to those of you who've decided to join me today. But before I even do that, as I am notified in the chat, I have to give special... let's see if I can try that again. I have to give special recognition to one of our attendees, not just an attendee, but a constant presence, promoter, and moderator of this show and my channel in general, Keeverdam. Keeverdam has been a part of this small little universe of my channel and Lords of the Night and elsewise longer than I can remember. And unfortunately, her work schedule is about to change, which means she will be unable to be as present and active during the TEDx broadcasts as previously. So if you would all take a moment and express your thanks to Keeverdam for everything she does for my channel and other content creators with her time and enthusiasm. I would appreciate it. Put it into the chat, your thanks, so for posterity's sake, it will be there forever. Keeverdam, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. More than I can express, if what I've expressed already is even scratching the surface. But that being said, Jaeger Pony, hello. John Miller, hello. Texas Attorney General Secret Agent, hello. Funtime Bats, hello. Jamie Melquist, hello. Zach Osborne, hello. Keeverdam, of course, hello. Always Lost on Nothing Else, hello. The Assassin of the Gray, hello. Let's see. Jonathan Peterson, hello. And before I miss it, Mr. Tickle Trunk, thank you so much for the smiling, happy Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox. Wowie, wow, wow. Dogcat Fox is doing pretty good. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Deco, hello. Is it Yago Dragon or Jago Dragon? Because, you know, that J depends on where you're coming from. Megan Ring, hello. John Miller, hello. Debate Fly, hello. I am Steve, hello. And then chat jumped because, of course, it did. Brittany Holland, hello. Matt Barnes, hello. Shio Gorath, hello. Roger Reynolds, hello. Random American, hello. Who else? Robert Pincus, hello. The Redneck Ram, hello. And I think that's everyone. If I missed anyone, I apologize, but we are here. We are ready. All right, so this comes to us from Kasispub. I'm going to assume it is California State University at San Bernardino or Santa Barbara. Maybe? I don't know. I'm guessing. Either way, this one clocks in at 12 minutes and 45 seconds. I'll give a couple of seconds for a sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear this, and then we'll begin. But before that, the bingo card today is bingo card C from the poll. C as in calisthenics, or computer science or whatever I put on the poll on Twitter. Now, just for note, this is not the same bingo card C as the previous episode. That iteration of the C bingo card has been retired. This is a new spread, a new jumble of the squares. What happened last week will never be repeated with that card. In honor of its occurrence of the blackout, that card has been retired. So, this is not your ordinary card C. It's a new card C. That's exciting, right? Thank you, tall person. Hoy, can't watch live, but we'll watch in full later. Happy National Apple Strudel Day. Well, that's awfully Germanic of you. But thank you, tall person. Apple strudel. When was the last time I had an apple strudel? I don't know. Let's begin.
This is a $100 bill.
Yeah, $100 bill. $100 bill. Okay. If you know the reference that I just made there, $100 bill. $100 bill. Then you are an 80s kid, for sure. You guys hear that? Let me know in the chat. Loud and clear, good buddy, says Texas Attorney General Secret Agent. Sounds good, says Megan Ring. All right. A gold star, no prized to anybody who can recognize $100 bill. And the reference to the 80s. Oh, Texas Attorney General got it. Oh, Data. Yes. Yes, the character of Data in The Goonies, not Star Trek, when they found the counterfeit money. And his exclamation over and over again of $100 bill. Anyway, moving on.
And remembering its value
Yes.
is the most important aspect of our conversation today.
Oh, so this is about economics? Okay. Its value. Well, I mean, it is valued at $100, obviously, but then value is kind of a moving target depending on what era we are in or what we're talking about insofar as exchange. But okay. Thank you, Jago Dragon. Thank you for asking. Have some cash. Well, thank you, Jago Dragon, because similar to our speaker, I understand the value of $1, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Jago. And I'll try to remember that for the future.
My name is Nadia Heron, and I'm an educator.
Well, hi, Nadia. I'm Scribe.
And like you, I am exhausted. I'm exhausted from the Zoom meetings, the conference calls, the memos, and the email threads about race.
I am totally on board, Nadia. I cannot tell you how exhausting having the same conversations over and over again can be. Hearing the same nonsense spoken by different people over and over again can be. I am on board. You know, I think Nadia and I might be kindred spirits. Thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Hello, Kyle. Thank you so much. And Shio Gorath, thank you so much. Finally started The Shield based on your frequent suggestions into season 2. It's not bad, worth watching, but The Wire's better. Just wait. Just wait. That's all I'll say. If you're only into season 2, just wait. And right now, you can find the entirety of The Shield on Hulu if you happen to have Hulu. So give it a few episodes. You might end up liking it. And thank you again, Mr. Tickletrunk. Okay, I like this lady. I do too already. I'm on board. So my fingers are crossed that this will be an actual productive and informative TEDx.
Our country is having a reckoning following the death of George Floyd.
Well, that is true after a fashion.
A reckoning with systemic racism.
Uh-huh.
All this time, I couldn't help but think, do we as educators lack the capability to better serve our students when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion in our classrooms?
Okay, over to the bingo card, because we have definitely something here. Free space, circling that there, and diversity and inclusion, circling that as well. We got 2 spots on the board. I don't know. Are educators equipped for this? Is it the educator's realm to deal with this? Mr. Tickle Trunk, thank you again. Okay, I dislike this lady. Hope springs eternal. Let's see what she has to say.
The truth is much darker and much more complex than we'd care to realize.
Oh, and Dr. Keeve makes a good point. She did say diversity, equity, and inclusion, so circling equity as well. I'm wondering if I don't have to now sort of conjoin those two squares together, since DEI is far more common now than just D and I. Because it used to be diversity and inclusion was the phrase, but now they're putting equity in there. So I might have to think about merging those two and coming up with a new square. We shall see.
We lack the will and even the motivation to try.
Educators lack the will and motivation to work towards diversity and inclusion in schools. I've got about 4 years worth of various videos from multitudes of schools and educators that might say otherwise.
We lack the consciousness to take responsibility for the collective failings of inequity and social injustice so deeply ingrained in our educational system.
Whoa. Okay. I've said it many times in the past. I take neither credit nor blame for things I have not done. Why do you need to take accountability for any inequities, whatever they are, that may have been committed by your institution or your profession? Why does that become your burden to bear? Why don't you just do the best job that you can? I'm confused. Thank you, John Miller. Oh, great indoctrination. Could we just abandon education already? Starting to get the opinion that teachers are being paid too much to not work. I can't, place to place, state to state, jurisdiction to jurisdiction, teacher pay is different. And in a lot of cases, I think teachers don't get paid enough. But setting that aside, the bigger problem is the elevation of the school teacher into not a mentor position, but into a guru position. And the constant theme I'm seeing amongst educators, where they are speaking from a position of being a guru, a counselor, the one end all be all of their students' well-being philosophically and certainly in society. And almost to a one, do I rarely ever hear the parents mentioned, who are truly the ones who should be raising the children. But a lot of teachers are being either coached into or self-indoctrinated into believing that they are far above in the food chain of a child's development than maybe they should be, beyond a healthy degree at least. Okay, and then?
Oh, I'm exhausted though because I care.
Mm.
And you should too.
Mm.
You should care because classrooms have long been the battleground in the struggle for social injustice. And students, oh, they have consistently been leaders on the front lines.
Students have been leaders on the front lines of the battle of injustice in the classroom. I'm assuming you're going to give us some examples or something. Okay, well, injustice in the classroom, that's an interesting statement. And I would love to ask our speaker what she thinks about what is happening or has been happening in Illinois, in New York, in the Minnesota example I keep coming back to, which was so blatant, and onward. And not even that, but just looking at so many instances where I am told over and over again that the students need to see themselves in their teacher, i.e., if the teacher is of a different race than the students, then somehow that becomes a detriment to the educational process. And the only way to follow that line of thinking is to say, well, then the only way that any child can get the highest quality education is if their teacher, quote unquote, looks like them. And the only way you can achieve that with any, measure of certainty is if you segregate teachers and students on the basis of race. which is always disturbing as a notion to me. Maybe that's just me. Thank you, Jago Dragon. We need to remember that public schools have been tasked with indoctrination since before they were federalized. Depends on the school, depends on the teacher, depends on the culture of the region that they're in. There's a lot of things that might be questionable depending on who you're talking to or about. But there are some things that just are more, at least in my opinion, more on their face, problematic than others. I don't like using that word. It's been so overdone, but and you could say no matter what the school is in the country, as far as indoctrination is concerned, the Pledge of Allegiance can be seen as a tool of indoctrination, into American patriotism and elsewise. Now, that's not me calling it a bad thing, but if we're just talking about the definition of indoctrination, every school on the planet does it in some way, shape, or form. But I digress.
For example, in 1947, a courageous Mexican-American...
1947. I just want to make sure, because I was hoping for something a little bit more recent, something within the lifespan of me. But okay, 1947.
In 1947, a courageous Mexican-American farming family out of California. California, we are always making trouble.
That is true. You might start to remedy that by, forest management. Please.
But good trouble.
No.
This family, they dared to challenge the law and the consciousness of the American justice system.
Okay.
And they won.
Okay. And that family was, and the case was, and the circumstances were?
They fought for equal schooling for their 3 children.
Okay.
This Mendez v. Westminster case was able to lay the foundation for Thurgood Marshall.
Okay.
To argue the Brown v. Board of Education case in front of the Supreme Court. And that is the case that upended segregated classrooms across this nation.
Oh, if only that were true, though. If only that were true. And I'm not being facetious when I say that. Because if that were true, we wouldn't be seeing what's happening in Illinois, in Minnesota, in New York, and elsewhere. We wouldn't be seeing the idea of affinity groups, splitting up your kids on the basis of race, assessing kids differently on the basis of race, and on and on and on, as good things, as authorized things, as encouraged things. Thank you again, Jago Dragon. Not trying to say all indoctrination is bad. The school should be indoctrinating them to a fashion, into a functional member of society to a degree. I'm finishing your sentence for you, but you don't have to do another super chat to finish your sentence. Just finish your sentence, and I'll finish it. Let's see. And thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk, again. Also, we need to resegregate classrooms. Like I say, maybe our speaker doesn't know what's going on in these other places. It's possible. But I've seen and heard from far too many educators promoting this notion to think that it's just a fringe thing. From independent schools, from public schools. Yeah. Jago Dragon, yeah, it cut off. Okay. So degree was the thing. And Mike Savage, blarg.
And yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But 67 years later,
Uh-huh.
we are still waiting on equality in the classroom, wildly grasping at diversity through a haze of racial tension and virtue signaling as inequality persists.
Again, depending on what she's talking about, I agree. We are seeing inequality being instituted into classrooms and virtue signaling, mostly being fueled by it. I agree with the sentiment. I'm waiting for the specificity, though.
Oh, you should care, because we know that the research says that students internalize the unfair treatment that they experience in the classroom. When you see them as limited, small, subhuman, they begin to believe the same about themselves.
I totally agree. When you start telling kids they have a specific and set value on the basis of things they have no control over, that does a certain level of damage and increases racial divisions. I think we're on the same page here.
We must not tolerate such conduct from a professional segment of persons entrusted to educate, enlighten, and inspire.
I absolutely agree with the sentiment you are expressing. But past as prologue, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
The truth is, if our classrooms are the symbolic barometer for the future health of our nation, then instructors must intentionally embody their role in the health of said nation.
And how is that?
Or risk ideological genocide.
Ideological genocide. Okay, well, again, take us to where you want us to be, because depending on what you're talking about, I might be completely on board, at least with the most extreme cases that I've seen and covered over the last several years. But what do you mean? It's sort of like when someone says, I love you. Love is a many splendored thing. So
we must have equality in our classrooms and restructure the function of those who refuse to change.
Restructure the function of those who refuse to change. Okay, well, first off, you're going to have to define what you mean by equality in the classroom until I know what you're talking about. Because until I understand that definition, I don't know what the goal is. And then I can't assess that up against whatever mechanisms you're going to suggest. So what do you mean by equality in the classroom?
After all, classrooms are becoming more racially and ethnically diverse.
And maybe it was just my experience. I grew up in a racially and ethnically diverse community from the get-go. So maybe I'm biased in the sense that it never seemed like some kind of novel thing to me growing up. But okay. And
according to the U.S. Census in 2018, of the undergraduate student population, 52.9% were white.
Uh-huh. So was that the majority?
20.9 were Hispanic.
Okay.
15.1 were Black.
Yeah.
7.6% were Asian, and everybody else identified as other. Keep up.
Okay. I have no idea off the top of my head how that compares with general population demographics, but it doesn't sound too far off what I understood things to be generally in the U.S.
That same year, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, of the full-time professors, 75% were white, 12% were Asian, and for Hispanic and African-American full-time professors, they represented 6% respectively.
And are we, I brought up that example that I keep hearing over and over again, that students need to see themselves in their teachers and so on. Just as an offhanded thing, just as one of the most common arguments or tropes that I hear and have heard over the years, which always makes me a little cringy as to its implication. I'm starting to feel that right now. I don't know where she's going, but what does the race of the professors have to do with anything? Is my next question. Thank you, Gay Rascal. Restructure the function of those who refuse to change. So ideological genocide? Yeah, I'm curious to know if she'll get to that again and clarify what she means by that. Let's see. And now my mouse is deciding to go wonky again. Let's go to the bingo card real quick and just cover some things just to make sure I haven't missed anything. Plays victim. She hasn't talked about herself yet directly. So leaves out vital context. She's brought up several things, as I just alluded to. We'll have to see if she actually follows through with telling us about them. Weightless example, not yet. The only example she's given so far is the story that the court case that led to, in her words at least, Brown v. Board of Education. And I'm not going to leaves out vital context to the story about the court case and all the way up to Thurgood Marshall, because sure, you can leave out a lot of stuff in there, but it's just summary history. It's fine. Anecdote that probably never happened. She hasn't really given us one yet. Benevolent condescension. We might get there. Self-vilification or wretchedness. I'd be surprised, but not yet, if at all. Feminism. No. Childhood or family anecdote. She hasn't talked about herself yet, I recall. Privilege. She hasn't said it yet. Microaggressions, unconscious bias. Not specifically yet. In aggregate, we might get there, but let's wait and see. Patriarchy, no. Wage gap, no. Mind reading assumes motives. Not blatantly yet, but we'll see. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase, no. Word salad, not yet. I've understood everything she's had to say. Marginalize, marginalization. Did she say any of that yet? I don't think so, at least not outright, if I'm mistaken. Contradicts own point or argument. I don't know what her argument is yet. Systemic, institutional. Yeah, she talked about systemic racism at the top. I forgot about that one. A list. Has she given us a list of anything yet? I don't recall. I don't think so. White supremacy, not yet. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. Well, that's what I'm waiting for her to draw the line between the professors employed and what their race has to do with it. And lastly, collectivize his own demographic. I mean, if she's talking about teachers, then maybe. I'm going to give a little leeway on that one so far because, is she talking about the profession, or is she talking about, like, if she says something like, we as teachers have to, if I didn't already miss something like that. Keeper Dam says, diversity, equity, and inclusion, a list. No, that's a square all by itself, or at least two squares. I'm not going to triple up on that one. Okay, so tell me why the professor's race is so important.
There is a glaring gap between the faculty and the student population that we claim to serve.
Okay, so the faculty of any school proportionally has to reflect the population of the school. Okay, so in your hypothetical school here, college, there has to be a percentage quota set up that you can only have X number of white teachers, X number of black teachers, X number of Asian teachers. Right? So in order to maintain this demographic synergy, you're going to have to discriminate hiring teachers on the basis of race. Again, when you say things like that, I have a hard time thinking of another way to achieve what you are saying you want to achieve, unless you start discriminating people on the basis of the thing you say is the problem. So is that what you're suggesting? Because I'm at a loss to think of another solution.
These statistics speak to the chasms and polarization that have long impeded meaningful progress in the aim of social justice and mobilizing for change in our classrooms. Moreover, this profound gap is the primer for a slurry of potentially harmful interactions, similar to what we saw with the professor whose response regarding a simple question surrounding the recent unrest earned him a suspension and cause to be fired.
Okay, first off, while I am an English major, I am not a linguistics expert. Is chasms a acceptable alternate pronunciation of the word chasm? I mean, it's phonetic. I don't know if it's acceptable or technically in regular English. A slurry. I haven't heard slurry used in that context in a while. If you don't tell us what story or anecdote you are referring to here, I might have to, that might cover 3 different squares. Weightless example, anecdote that never really happened, and leaves out vital context. But anyway,
Furthermore,
Oh, no. Okay. All right. You know what? Okay. Leaves out vital context, at least. I'm circling that one because you don't get to drop that quote unquote example without telling us what it was about. Now, if she goes on to eventually describe whatever it is, I will take that back. But if we're moving on from that without any clarification, yeah, no. If you're going to bring up something that dramatic as one of your key examples of the problem, you have to give us the details. That's just how that works. Thank you, John Miller. She may have made that word up, chasms. Well, I know what word she was expressing. I'm just not sure if that is a pronunciation that is generally accepted. That's all. That's all I'm wondering.
it led to a breakdown of trust.
What did? What did?
And a loss of that relationship, that sacred relationship between teacher and pupil.
What did?
If academic minds can come together and solve Pierre Fermat's last theorem, then surely we can solve this issue of racism in our lifetime.
No. Okay. Tell me how you'd solve murder. Tell me how you'd solve greed. Tell me how you'd solve, I don't know, robbery. Oh, that's theft. Anyway. Okay. Racism is never going anywhere. It's always going to be there in some way, shape, or form. It's human nature to divide, to assess, and so on. You can ease it out of fashionability. You can make it more and more irrelevant of an argument. But the only way that you do that is to make race an irrelevancy when assessing people. Okay? So here's where you've contradicted your own point or argument already. There's just about halfway through this thing. You say you want to end racism. At the same time, you say you want the faculty of a school to match the demographic spread of the students. There's only one way you get there. And there's only one mechanism to employ to achieve that goal. So I'm sorry, you've already lost it. So I'm going to be circling contradicts own point or argument. You don't end racism by setting up statistical quotas based on race. You don't. The only way you end racism, or at least diminish it to something that is rare or irrelevant in and of itself, is to make race an irrelevancy. To stop saying that race is an identity or some kind of determinative factor in people. That's how you do that. But you're not doing that, at least by suggestion and implication.
If we can put a man on the moon, then certainly we can address inequity and social injustice in our classrooms.
Okay, so the race of the teacher not matching the race of the students is a social inequity. Because that's the only thing you've brought up so far as an example of a problem. At least that you've defined, because we don't know what that teacher said that got him suspended. Unless there's some really famous story in the last several months that is just going straight over my head. But
we can begin by closing the representation gap in institutions of higher learning across this country.
So instituting race-based hiring practices. Again, I'm not meaning to put words in her mouth, but I have no idea what else she could be referring to.
You should care because the future of our nation will look like the student population that we serve today.
Look like. Why is that important? The more importance you place on aesthetics, the longer the problem will persist. I don't know what else to tell you about it. And I am waiting to hear how you would resolve this problem, if not by hiring on the basis of race.
Their tomorrow rests upon our shoulders.
You are absolutely right. The future that we have in front of us is on the shoulders of those in charge of things. So please, please, please tell me that you have some solution to the problem that doesn't require a racial filter.
Now, if a Black student walks into your classroom, know that they have defied the odds.
Because they're Black? Oh, I can't wait for this one. You mentioned earlier about not devaluing kids and Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. Grew up in a mostly white rural area, grades 1 through 8, had non-white teachers. By her own logic, that was increasing racism. Got it. I'm not quite sure where her logic lies at this point, to be frank. And no, I don't mean monkey. She, on the one hand, she wants to end racism. On the other hand, she wants to group everyone up according to their race, statistically. Okay. Tell me more.
Know that they continue to participate in a system designed for their failure.
The system is designed to fail Black students. Just across the board. All over. The educational system writ large is built to fail Black students.
A system that created laws to prevent them from gaining wealth.
What laws are those? And no, you do not need to inform me of the inequalities of the past. Jim Crow, redlining, on and on. Okay. Today, what laws prevent Black people from earning wealth? Today.
And then would criminalize their poverty. A system that would prevent them from reading, making it illegal for them to read, and then punish them for being illiterate. A system designed to send them from the classroom to the prison pipeline. A uniquely American system that assaults them on every front, from disparities in their health care, to confinement in impoverished neighborhoods, to disproportionate exposure, to inferior schoolings, to significantly greater dangers and encounters with law enforcement. And I could go on.
I'm sure you could. Just belting out a whole bunch of accusations and propositions without context or backup. And again, not talking about laws that are long since defunct and overwritten. Today, I'm willing to listen to examples from today if you have them. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. So your system privileges Jews and Asians. What? I don't know what is going on here, but that was certainly a list. If nothing else, I think we can all agree that that was a list. It's not a list that will be otherwise explained, but a list. Thank you. This is Kyle. Wow, buzzword salad. Yeah, I'm going to circle this word salad here in a second. And thank you, John Miller. Did we just hit the slam poetry hour? I mean, the stage presentation is a performance after a fashion. Word salad, circling that as well. Okay, so it's illegal to learn to read. It's illegal to read. It's... Okay, when she brought up poverty, all right, now that could be a perhaps more cogent discussion, because the lack of wealth, regardless of race, does impart a whole bunch of burdens and limitations that the middle and upper class do not necessarily encounter. But she has now conjoined class with race. She has conjoined race with an expectation that they are in need of special help because of their race.
From the labor market discrimination that's waiting for them on the other side of graduation, to a television media and this one is important, to a television media that manufactures and reinforces disparaging portraits of their identity by telling you that they, as Black people, are subhuman, validating the abuse that they receive.
The television media of today enforces the idea that Black people are subhuman. And this is important. Setting aside the whole educational thing and but this is important. The television. I don't know if you've watched television lately. Maybe you haven't. I'm circling weightless example. Moving on.
Know that when these students sign their names on the papers and assignments that they turn into you, they're not really signing their names.
What?
They're actually signing the names of the person who owned their great-great-grandparent.
Okay.
In slavery. Pause for just a second and realize how deep the veins of systemic racism run.
So, every time a teacher sees a Black student, never mind any students of any other color or otherwise, every time they see a Black student, they need to be thinking, this kid survived the odds. This kid is tied to poverty. This kid is tied exclusively or inevitably to hardship and also slavery. Those are the thoughts you want to have in teachers' minds when they encounter a Black student. Those are the thoughts they should have in mind when they encounter a Black student because they are Black. Tell me again about your goal of ending racism in your lifetime.
Many are going to be defeated before they even walk through the door, but they're still coming. They are walking through your classroom doors, and many are met with instructors who express dissent for their skin through harmful microaggressions.
Oh, microaggressions. Okay, up on the board. Microaggressions / unconscious bias. Right. Okay. Tell me more about the microaggressions. You know, those things that are often unconscious and interpretive by the listener. Offense taken, not necessarily given.
Or a pathologizing of their culture. These affronts are often coupled with assumptions of criminality, resulting in over-policing on our college campuses and universities. Black people portrayed as violent in America, when more often than not, we are on the receiving end of said violence.
Okay, so you're fine with people having presumptions of disadvantage, lack of prospects, inherent victimization of slavery when looking at Black kids. But those other assumptions, those are bad. I mean, those are bad. I mean, there are some that you have to have, but there are some that are bad. Yeah, I mean, you know, ideally, people would take each other on as individuals. Right? The content of one's character and not the color of their skin. Heaven forfend that we promote that idea, instead of telling teachers that they need to treat certain students with kid gloves because their race makes them somehow fragile or inherent victims.
They face ascriptions of their intelligence, while they're more accurately experiencing historic growth in education. In 2015, a report by Nielsen documented that high school graduation rates and the percentage of Black high school graduates enrolled in college jumped to historic heights.
How? They're in a system that is built to fail them. How? You just got done telling us that everything is set up to completely torpedo any chance that they have. How is that possible? That their prospects are rising. Which is it? Are we living in a perpetually endemically racist society system or not? Have things improved in the last 60 years or haven't they? Which is it? What stereotypes are acceptable to possess about certain people based on their race, and which ones are not? Because I can't tell whether having stereotypes based on race here is good or bad. Because you're encouraging teachers to possess them in the first place in some cases. Oh, but these other ones are bad. Okay, well, I'll need a list more coherent than the one you already gave. Because I don't know, what are the good racial stereotypes? Or what are the productive ones, I suppose? Hoy, thank you, Pecoraro, the Driving Ape Man, and this is not parody, right? You know, these days, if somebody came out after this, like somebody had an article or something that showed that this was a complete put on, a satire or something, I'd be happy to hear it, but at the same time also depressed that it doesn't sound all that much different from the rhetoric I've been hearing for the last 4 years. So who knows these days? Who knows? Okay, so a dramatic increase in high school graduates, college graduates, was it? All right. If, you know, having gone through a system that is built to make them fail. All right.
Outpacing that of any other ethnic group, outpacing that of the total population, period.
In a system that is built to make them fail. Got it.
But just because they're brilliant doesn't mean that they don't fail. Know that, ironically, the first time many of them experience racism was in the classroom, and know that they will more than likely continue to experience the weight and trauma of racism throughout their lifetime.
You are encouraging racism in the classroom. You just did it several times now. Between how teachers should assess a student based on their skin color and the implication that professors need to be hired on the basis of race and paired, seemingly, with students of like skin tone. So don't complain about racism in the classroom when you are advocating for it.
But I know this too really has nothing to do with you. So the question remains, why should you care?
Well, okay, speaking for myself, I don't know if you've been able to tell by my passionate exclamation so far, but I do care. I really do care. And I don't even have any kids. This is the thing, you know, like Satsu worries about this stuff all the time because he's got a small daughter and he worries what's going to happen when she has to go off to school, given all the things that are happening these days. And so I can only vicariously, in my direct contact with him, sort of worry on her behalf. But that's beside the point. Just the blatant contradiction and the cognitive dissonance over saying you want to reduce racism in your lifetime. No, sorry, eliminate racism in your lifetime. And yet everything that you are implying by your language, by your rhetoric, by your ideas is only going to make sure it stays forever. Whoops. That was a misclick, but I'll read it all the same. Random American, I will pay into a fund to get Aaliyah some homeschooling. I really hope it doesn't come to that. There is a whole lot to be gained by going into public school, associating with other people, learning social skills, you know, interaction and stuff. You can't put a price on it. I really hope it doesn't come to that. But thank you, Redneck Ram. For reference, I'm about 6 minutes behind the live broadcast. What the actual crap is this hysterical woman on about? You talking about the litany we were given? I don't know. I don't know. So far, it's been just an ongoing run of contradictions.
As the nation recovers from the polarizing events that follow the death of George Floyd.
You want to introduce more polarizing policies in colleges and classrooms?
And we return to our campuses, classrooms, and community. As educators, we must acknowledge some pretty daunting realities.
Okay, as educators, I'm going to circle collectivize his own demographic because a profession is a demographic. So we as educators. All right, circling that one. All right, what should you as educators do now?
This is not just about the death of George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
We must acknowledge that his death is only a singular occurrence in a scathing epidemic of collective race-based violence and systemic oppression perpetrated on Black persons in this country since its inception.
Everything's terrible and nothing can improve. Got it.
We must cease in our failure to recognize the undeniable truth. America is a great nation, but it was built on a foundation of hate that encompassed slavery, white supremacy, and mass genocide.
White supremacy is up on the board. Boy, oh boy. Yes, and as we all know, slavery is as active today as it was back in 1863. Oh, and, white supremacy is a totally popular way of being, which is why the KKK has been whittled down to something like 5,000 to 10,000 members, if that. Yeah, as we know, all of these things that the country was, quote unquote, built on are the exact same now as they were then, in both popularity and legal application, as you know.
A foundation that cannot stand if you choose to,
What?
if we choose to.
Will
we continue to be passive participants in a culture of silence in our classrooms?
Who is being silent in the classroom about... Okay, well, you tell me, what does not being silent look like as an educator? I would love to have an active example of what she's talking about. What should your, average teacher do to solve this problem? She's got a couple of minutes left. I really hope she gives like a list of advice or something, because I don't know what to make of what she's saying beyond the abstract. Thank you. This is Kyle. Honestly, these people seem to think that America was once racist, therefore it still is today. I don't understand this mentality. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to say. I've heard it over and over and over again, despite the fact that people of all races fought and died to form a more perfect union between the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement to today. And that the idea of racism in the public square now, actual racism, is about as vile a notion as you can come up with. If the reaction, whether you think it was overreactive or otherwise, in sentiment, not necessarily in physical action and riots and stuff, but in sentiment to what happened to George Floyd, whatever you think about the court case and how that came out, and there's a lot to talk about there, the images of what happened to that guy disgusted both sides of the aisle. There wasn't a whole lot of debate that what happened there was some form of egregiousness. And yet, I am told over and over again, this is a racist country. Barack Obama gets elected to the presidency twice. Oh, but this is a racist country. The problem is that in their attempts to try to resolve this problem by telling us that they need race to be focused on, they need race to be an identity, and so on, they are planting the seeds of making this country more racist in its policies and procedures, as has been at least implicated by our speaker with the whole faculty demographic assessment. Okay, what should teachers do to not be silent? What does a non-silent teacher look like? And I don't mean literally. I mean in action, not in appearance.
Or will we begin to develop a consciousness to be a part of something bigger than ourselves? Now, I understand, no, you are not responsible for something that happened centuries ago that you have nothing to do with.
But
you do have the opportunity to be a...
No. You don't dump the weight of the country's past as an argument for speaking out today. You do not say that teachers hold accountability for their profession's actions of the past, which you did at the beginning of this, and then say, no, you're not actually responsible for anything. No. You don't get to say that every time a black student signs their name on a paper, you have to look at that as a remnant of slavery and then come and say this. No. Sorry, you don't get to make that move. You have set yourself up and painted yourself into a corner where you do not get to make that move at this point. So no.
Part of a solution for what's going on right now: contemporary oppression, contemporary marginalization, and contemporary brutal violence. We are dying today.
Okay. So what is a teacher, an educator, to do? Literally, like specifically, what action? Even if it's a category, I'll take a category, because each school's different, each classroom is different. But what can a teacher do today to attempt in some way, shape, or form to counter this? Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. You've literally had a mixed race black president. I know. And of course, there are no black celebrities. There are no black heroes in America. And I'm not just talking about superheroes. I'm talking about sports stars, movie stars, scientists, and on and on and on. There's no one that we venerate in this country, regardless of their skin color, or that they have the skin color of someone that, would otherwise be a victim all the time. We don't have any holidays. We're not passing any laws or any new declarations in the last 48 hours that might say something elsewise. No. Okay, what is a teacher to do? You've got about 3 minutes left. Please, if you're here to encourage educators to take action, at least give me an action.
You have the opportunity to be a part of a kind of justice that will ripple through the generations. The academic community must adopt an iterative process of developing and enforcing meaningful strategies in the aim of peace from systemic violence and racism.
Okay, and is one of those policies ensuring that the faculty reflect the demographic makeup of the student body? And how will you achieve that in the real world, might I ask? And then do tell me about a system of hiring practices geared towards matching faculty with student demographics. Do tell how that is going to contribute to reducing racism.
Aimed at minoritized communities, more specifically African American people in our educational system and society as a whole.
So you have a racial preference in who needs the most help. And who inherently is in need of help, obviously. Okay.
We are here today because a man, propelled by centuries of racial injustice, kneeled on another man's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds.
We were here before that happened. I don't know what you're talking about. You mean here in this moment of this kind of hysteria? No, this is just the most recent event in a long series of events where people have stood on the bodies of dead people to push their personal agendas, which, despite all the rhetoric to the contrary, is promoting further racial division, not solving it, as has been demonstrated here. Thank you, Redneck Ram. I think what makes me so angry is how emotionally charged her delivery is to try to make people side with her and believe her. Yeah, the emotional push behind it is something, but I kind of just look at that as, I don't know, wrapping on the package kind of thing. It's just there. What's underneath it? What's actually being said? P-Dog Night, dang, missed live. We'll have to watch later. Yep, it's something. It's something. She gave me hope for the first minute or two. A lot of us were like, oh, well, maybe I came upon a very rare TEDx, but I was quickly disappointed.
Now, there were 3 other people there, and had one taken one of those seconds to speak up, we might not be here today.
Okay. Again, I hate to tell our speaker this, but nearly everything that she has said, both her complaints and her implied suggestions as to a resolution, all of those things were proposed, were stated constantly long before George Floyd happened. I have 4 years worth of videos in a playlist called Curriculum of Fear. And all of those things are covered by multiple educators in multiple jurisdictions across multiple disciplines over and over and over again. Nothing you are saying is actually new. The fact that you are standing on a recently dead body to do it, also not new.
I'm not asking you to abandon any long-held religious or political beliefs. I'm just asking you, no, I am begging you to speak up.
In what fashion?
Inequality persists in our classrooms, and it is time that we adjust our behavior accordingly.
Which means what?
This will require collective efforts of deliberative engagement, authentic dialogic interaction with interorganizational, interdivisional, and interdisciplinary alignment.
Oh, man. If I hadn't already circled word salad, well, that would take the cake. Boy, to this day, I wish I could remember it, but there was a time where I worked for a corporate subsidiary of a larger corporation, I'll just say, and we had to go through all types of different programs and things, and there was one meeting I had to sit in on. And, I wish I had a tape recorder. Remember tape recorders? Or something, smartphone, to record the absolute genius soliloquy of nonsense that came out of the trainer in that session. I mean, it was obviously practiced, right? This lady had been, she must have been doing this professionally for a long time. But at one point in the early part of the presentation, she just justified why we were doing what we were doing with just the most melodic, poetic, just almost soothing cacophony of nonsense. This, I can't get past the sentimentality of it. And of course, I can't remember it. So I think this might just top that. because that was something. Boy, that was something. So you're not going to actually tell us what needs to be done, are you?
The future of this country will be decided in our classrooms. The future of this country, educators, it will be shaped by you. And that's why it is time to care.
You know, I kind of go into meeting a teacher or just thinking about teachers in general that they care at least enough to become a teacher. At one point or another, they dedicated a whole bunch of their time, money, and mentality into becoming a teacher. And while you have to assess each teacher on their own merits, of course, the teachers that I had growing up, I have a sort of reflexive respect for the profession of teaching because of how valuable it is, because of how important it is. What are you talking about? Because it does not sound like you want teachers to teach. It sounds like you want teachers to preach. And that is disturbing to me. So if you don't take the next minute to give us some specificity, something, then all of this was for naught.
Now,
oh,
I did not forget about this $100 bill.
You know what? I did. I completely forgot that that's how this thing started. Yeah, the value of a $100 bill, right? Well, I tell you what, you blew my mind. I completely forgot about it, honestly.
To the African-American students under the sound of my voice.
What?
Like this $100 bill, you may have been walked on, stepped over, you may feel overlooked.
What?
But you must never forget your value. You see, I didn't forget this $100 bill because it still has its value. You must never forget your value so that in your success, you may pay homage to the generation of Black folks that came before you and shed their blood that their progeny might know true freedom. You must never forget your value that you may give hope and inspire action in the next generation that's coming up behind you, that they may take the torch of progress, that they may take the tenets of Black genius and run with it without restraint. No, you must never forget your value. Remember that you are seen, you are supported, you are loved, and you are invaluable. My name is Nadia Heron, and I thank you so much for listening.
Your race denotes your value. I'm not sure I need to say anything else beyond that. That entire last part sent only one message. There is value in your race. And if I sound slightly deflated, you know why that is? Because I care. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Okay, I really don't like her now. All right. Well, that is the end of that. Let us move on to the wonderful world of the bingo card and see where that takes us. I need to shrink it down just a smidge. Forgive me one moment here. Is that enough? That's enough. Okay. Let us review. I'm going to go through the card myself one more time, and then after that, I will take arguments or suggestions for squares yet to be circled. Plays victim. Again, and I'm being very specific here because we could go into abstracts all day. She did not talk about herself or her own experiences much at all, if at all. So it's difficult for me to say that she played a victim herself. Anecdote that probably never happened. One second here. Thank you, John Miller. I feel nothing but sorrow for the students she educates. That hurt a lot. Yeah, the implications of what she does in her own classroom, if that's what she believes needs to happen, such as it is, it's disturbing. Okay, anecdote that probably never happened. All right, I already used leaves out vital context for the non-explained example of the teacher who said something and was suspended. I don't even know what that refers to. Maybe she was talking about something that happened at her school that the people listening would know, but I, as an audience member, have no idea. So, anecdote that probably never happened. That was the only anecdote she really gave, aside from the historical court case that, would eventually lead up to Brown v. Board of Education, or was a precursor to Brown v. Board. So I don't know that there was an anecdote in there that never happened. If you have suggestions, I'll take them in a minute. Benevolent condescension. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. She knows best, and everybody here is stupid. Because everybody here doesn't care and doesn't know what they're doing. And I know what's best, obviously. And also, if nothing else, talking down to anybody who happens to be black as a victim. For their own good, of course. Thank you, Lisa Leo. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa Leo. She is teaching kids, dear God, help them with a teacher like her. And I have to say this, and this is something that I'm reminded of from another YouTuber, Dave's Lemonade, who does crime analysis, or so far like a To Catch a Predator analysis and stuff. He always starts out his videos by saying, it should be remembered that this is only a small portion of someone's life or thinking or whatever else. And that is true. TEDx talks are just a photograph, right? They're just a little portion of someone and the presentation that they put together. So I can't know what our speaker does in her own classroom. Maybe her rhetoric and her beliefs are tempered by school policy or something else. I don't know. So I cannot make any judgments of the totality of what she does in her classroom. But if her sentiments are put into practice as she described them by herself or anyone else in the classroom and labeled as good things, they are completely counterproductive to the idea of reducing racial tension and inequality. I'll just say that as a blanket statement. All right. Self-vilification or wretchedness. At no time did she ever self-vilify or wretched herself. Feminism. She never really got into gender politics at all. I think she might have mentioned, I'm trying to think. No, and even if she did, not to the extent that it ever came up as feminism. Okay. As far as I can tell. Childhood or family anecdote. Again, she never talked about herself. So that's out. Privilege. She never said the word, but I'm definitely in the aggregate of everything she was talking about, circling that one. Because there's no way you can look at the reverse of everything she listed off as being inherent to black people without the corollary. So I'm circling that one. Patriarchy. Now, again, she never really talked about gender politics. Wage gap. No, she didn't talk about wage gap or pay gap. Reads mind, assumes motives. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Teachers do this. Microaggressions do that. Black people do this. School systems do that. And consequently, since I haven't updated the card in a second, I can do this and then do this. If you can believe it.
Bingo. What? Of course!
Our first bingo. Oh my gosh. Where will we go next? Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. For that just absolute poetry near the end, somewhere in there, I'm pretty sure there was a buzzword, buzz phrase. I'm gonna, because it's not making a bingo, I'm going to go lax a little bit on the rule that it has to be like something I like to call, because in the course of all of that, I can't avoid it. I can't avoid it. Oh my God, you're right. How did I not notice that before? We have another bingo.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
That's right. I didn't even notice. Gosh, you guys, double bingo. All right, marginalization. She did say marginalized in there somewhere, didn't she? She had to have. And if not, then everything that she was talking about with the inherent difficulties of this, that, or the other, I don't see how it's avoidable. But once again,
Bingo. What? Of course!
triple bingo. And lastly, make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. All right, now, I know it would be easy, but the qualifier is for no reason. And here's where I'm probably going to get controversial. Now, my reflexive thought is, well, the whole professor thing. What does the professor's race have to do with it? But in her version of events, that signifies an inequality. So she didn't bring it up for no reason. It was part and parcel to her presentation in the dimension where what she was saying was a healthy way to look at the world or decide on hiring practices. Now, I know I'm going to get some pushback on that, but I have to, as I always do, or I attempt to do, I look at the presentation for what it is. Within the universe of the presentation, did she say that for no reason? And the answer is no. She had a reason, and it was spelled out the entire time. Thank you, Gay Rascal. Scribe really knows how to pick them lately. Well, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to look at anything other than a near complete bingo card blackout as all that remarkable at this point, especially after last week. But yeah, no, this is again, my decision of what TEDx to look at on any particular week is almost entirely on the basis of the title, the subject matter that is being mentioned, or the mystery of what the title implies. So I don't watch them ahead of time. So, you know, you see them as I see them at the same time. Okay, so that is the card as I see it at present. I will entertain arguments for other squares to be circled for the next couple of minutes, and then we will wrap this up for the day. And if you have a suggestion, please be sure to tag my name in your chat message so I can sort of distinguish it from everything else. Keeverdam, new buzzword, minoritized. Did she say that? She did say that, didn't she? Okay. Well, either way, I mean, we already circled buzzwords. So if that's further justification, I'll take it. Sure. Let's see. Who's next on the block? I'll scroll up a little bit. Assassin of the Gray. We agree, Scribe. She had plenty of reason, that reason being her racism. Like I say, in the universe of the presentation, is something a non sequitur? That's really the thing. Right? Is it a non sequitur in the realm of the presentation itself? And in this case, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was the crux on which her entire presentation relied. Mr. E, what if she's lying when she comes up with the reason? Doesn't that nullify any given reason? No. Like I say, within the universe of the talk and the presentation, okay, a weightless example or something out of context or something, we have squares for that. The point of decision that I'm pushing for with that one in particular is that it has to be something that comes out of nowhere has nothing to do with anything, and never has any relevance to the argument itself. Since her argument was based all around race, bringing up the race of the teachers and the whole demographic thing had a reason, or was part of her reason, let's say. And there is some road construction or something happening outside. If you can hear that, apologies. I can't do anything about that. So yeah, that's where it is. I know it's a stickler sort of place to be, but especially in the instance where it's the last square before another bingo, after we already had 3, the bar is pretty high. Thank you, Lamented Guide Scribe. You have the patience of a saint. I don't know about that. I appreciate the sentiment, though. Just trying to work through this bit by bit. Okay, let's see. John Miller, Scribelight. I would say plays victim in aggregate. She made it that all minorities are victims of the society. She is a minority, thus a victim. Again, the only reason I hesitate is that she, as far as I can tell, she never had any moment of self-reference, except to say, like, we as educators. That's as close as she came. And especially, you know, after the blackout from last week, and I'll just say this as sort of a passive double check, I want to make sure that I am being as strict/legitimate as possible, that I'm not just circling something to circle it. All right. I mean, occasionally in the case of fun, or if it's not going to affect anything, sure, fine. But overall, I want to make sure that this dissection that we do at the end of every show, you know, has some overall rigor. And I know that I'm inevitably the only adjudicator of what it counts for rigor, but so that's my long-winded explanation of why I'm not quite thinking that she played victim in there. I would need at least one thing. If she said something about her growing up or her experience in school or something, then maybe. Lexi Mad, Scribelight, I would like to know what Dogcat Fox has to say about this. Is it multiple wowie wow wows? Please ask him. You want me to ask Dogcat Fox what he has to say about this? Dogcat Fox, what do you have to say about this? He's a Dogcat Fox. He can't talk. What? You think they think that you're like, I don't know, a person. Do you think you're people? Is that where we're at now? Do you think you're people? Wowie wow. Wow. Oh, Lord. I feed that guy too many goldfish crackers. Moving on. Well, I don't see any other arguments for squares to be circled. I'll give it another minute here. Lexi Mads, you made my day. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad I could do that for you. Mr. E, Spectre, meowie meow meow. I'm a white kitten. Is fur color really that big of a deal? You have a cat named Spectre? Do you have a small toy mouse that you've named James Bond? If you get that reference, you're a nerd. Let's see. Keeverdam, does begging count as playing victim? Oh. No. She was talking from such a position of superiority and enlightenment over everyone else the whole time. I don't see that as playing victim, as somebody who's just being condescending to everyone. You know, please care. to presumably a entire industry of people who spent a good portion of their lives learning how to teach in order to help others. The assumption that they don't care if they don't do what she says. That doesn't sound like someone playing a victim to me. Let's see. Data Wasteland. I remember Hollywood Squares. Okay. Do you remember Shadow Stevens? No. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Super sticker. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Dogcat Fox saying, my hero. Oh, Dogcat Fox. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. All right. Well, everyone, we're approaching that time. And I think we are at where we're at. And it was not for naught insofar as the bingo card was concerned. Triple bingo, which in and of itself is not that doesn't happen very often. We've had plenty of TEDx's go by with no bingos at all, or just one or two. But triple bingos, not too shabby. Admittedly, it is not nearly as dramatic as last week. And if you want to know why last week was dramatic, you'll have to look at the previous episode. The thumbnail says Tale of the Shape. You can find that there. But everyone, I'm going to call that here disappointing, especially after the opening gambit where I was kind of like, oh, okay, where is this going? And then the inevitable fall. Oh, well, maybe next time. Fingers crossed, and crossed fingers make an X, as in TEDx. And that's the best I can do. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. If you'd like to hear more from me or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find the two of us tonight, Thursday night, on this channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for The Lords of the Night, where Satsu and I will go over the news of the day, news stories you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. Everyone, again, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everyone who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. And likewise, Keeverdam, in her, at least for now, farewell broadcast as a main moderator due to timing and work. Thank you so much for your generosity and your efforts and your loyalty. I really do appreciate it. Everyone, I hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.